all of a sudden it gets real. Then all of a sudden I'm not nearly as tolerant about you talking about your day as I used to be. When my daughter sobered up 2 years ago now, everything changed. I could be really tolerant. You could talk about your dog barking at the neighbor's cat for the whole meeting. I didn't care. But when I realized that my daughter was sitting in that same kind of meeting listening to that crap, it got really, really important. And I got really, really obnoxious. Hey, you, quit tapping! Oh, it wasn't that bad, but, well, sometimes it was. So let's talk just briefly about this. Tomorrow night I'm going to do some story and I'm going to connect up some dots of this bigger picture. We'll do it through the day tomorrow too, but I simply will say tonight that when I came into AA, I was desperate to be here, fell in love with this deal, but didn't really want to do anything that looked like work. I'm the guy that I don't want to read, and this thing called sponsorship. I'm going to look for the guy with the fanciest suit on, and he drives up in a big car. I won't be a businessman for a sponsor. I don't want any loser guy. And so what ended up happening was that I came in and spent a lot of time just visiting, and we had a lot of fun, and you know how it is. The problem is that down lane, 3 or 4 years after I got to AA, I started getting sick in AA, but I didn't know that's what it was. I thought I was just getting tired of hearing your story over and over and over again. I didn't realize that untreated alcoholism was killing me. I didn't realize it. I didn't know. I thought that my being in the meeting was treating the alcoholism. Nobody had connected it up. And we're going to talk about this stuff a bunch tomorrow, so if the idea of something like that bothers you and disturbs you, I'm really sorry. I'll throw some jokes in or something tomorrow so it seems like it's worthwhile. The reality is, guys, is that in the early days, I used to think that I was the only guy that felt like that. I thought that I was the only guy that felt like I was falling apart in AA. And then what happened was that I started talking to you. I just started traveling a little bit, and I started visiting people, and Chris would tell me, and all of a sudden I started connecting this thing up, and I went, holy cow, there are thousands and thousands of people out there in AA land dying, sitting in AA meetings. And then you start asking, why? Why is that happening? And then the answers were really clear. It would just take me a while to put them all together. I wasn't the first. There were other people out there doing the same thing, connecting it up. One of the things I want to talk about real quick, see these figures over here that I write like I'm 3, and I apologize, but I think we can understand what in the United States for a long, long time, starting way back in the 50s and 60s, they started keeping records of desire chips that they would give out, 1-year medallions and this kind of stuff. They probably do something similar here. Excuse me. There was that rib I said I wasn't going to eat. I'm so sorry. We ate like pigs about 2 hours ago, and so I get all added up. I'll do a lot of that. I'm sorry. These poor guys from out of town, these poor guys that travel all over, they came from France and all these places, I'm thinking, in Sweden, and we came all the way to watch you burp. I don't know. It's just not good. Okay, so what I want to talk about is what seems to be happening in our fellowships, collective fellowships, because this same stuff is going on in our sister fellowships like Cocaine Anonymous and Drug Addicts Anonymous. We're seeing some of the same kind of stuff. What happened is that there was a lot of crazy things that started to happen. Okay? Now, but we didn't want to look at it. We didn't want to address it. It was what started happening was like the 400-pound naked guy sitting in the room, and nobody wanted to look at him. I mean, everybody's just pretending that he's not sitting there, scratching himself. I mean, but we don't. I don't want to look at it either. But you know what I'm saying? We didn't want to look at that stuff because it's disturbing to know that there might be a problem, that maybe there's something that we need to deal with. The problem was that we began to get irrefutable evidence that what we were doing wasn't necessarily working. See what I'm saying? These figures that are over here on the board, for those guys that can't see it in the back, I'm going to read this stuff in those desire shifts. These were from 2010. 2010 were the last ones that we had. Now these were taken from the intergroup offices, the local central office in Dallas, Texas, and these were the stats that they gave us that they posted on the thing. In 2010, they gave 16,284 desire shifts out. So if you said, hey, I'm done, I want to stop drinking, and you walked up in front of a meeting and they gave you that little medallion and you took it home with you to begin your sobriety, that's how many they gave. 1 month medallions, they gave 4,412. And scoot down here for the 1 year, 1,396, and 5 years, 303. Now listen, guys, I'm with you that some of these guys, if you got 16,000, let's just round it off so I can figure if we round it off to 16,000, I can keep it straight in my head. If we were at 16,000 and we dropped down to 4,400 for 1 year, where did all those people go? You're talking about over 10,000 people that left. Now, where did they go? Now, listen, I understand some of these guys just decided they didn't want to do what we did. You remember, you've seen guys. They came in and they sat around and they went, sharing? Really? And they left. Or maybe they realized it was going to take some work. Maybe they were going to have to come clean with all those lies they've been telling. I don't care what the reason is. I understand why some people come and try it and then leave. I get that. But 10,000? Somewhere along the line, guys, as a responsible fellowship of men and women, we have to start taking credit for what's going on. And the question that I'm asking is, could it be, I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying, could it be that a lot of those people came and didn't hear what they needed to stay sober? Because we were too busy talking about other things instead of a message of hope and recovery, our primary purpose, tradition 4. Could it be that that's the case? I know that makes some of you just. I mean, I don't care where we go. People get really upset about that thing. Remember, Bill Wilson early on told us that when it hit the fan, when we started having problems, it was going to come from the inside out. It wasn't going to come from attack from the outside. Rank and file people out there in the world, they're not attacking us. What's happening is that we have a fellowship of the kindest, gentlest people on earth who are simply unclear about what the program looks like. Because we all think, so many of us think anyway, and I did for a bunch of years, I'm not talking from some spiritual mountaintop here, guys. I thought for a long, long time that AA was simply sharing. We'll just go to a bunch of meetings. Keep coming back. It works. So 90 meetings in 90 days. All these little one-liners and this kind of stuff. I'm not knocking it. What? I am. But because they're not true. They're not listening. If meeting makers make it, how come it is at 7 years sober I'm unraveling? How come I'm falling apart at the seams at 7 years? You see, if the meeting alone treated the internal condition, which is alcoholism, then we just go to a bunch of meetings. We don't need a program. We don't need sponsors. We don't need anything like that. Frankly, we could go to the parent teacher, the PTA, or we could go to the YMCA, or we could just go have some meetings. I know it sounds stupid, but it's the truth, because I'm the only guy. Listen, how many of you guys have heard this same exact thing? We have men and women that are sitting in meetings, and some guy comes in the room and he's relapsed. And we say, okay, Joe, tell me what happened. Tell me why you relapsed. Well, and it's always exactly the same thing. Well, I just stopped going to meetings. Well, I know. I mean, sometimes it starts like that, but I mean, that's the reason that he's connecting up. And so it stands to reason that if that was the reason that he left, then the way to get him back is to what? Go to meetings. We'll just reverse it. The problem is that it never treated it in the first place. That's the reason he relapsed. But we don't ever say, did it ever occur to you to work the stinking steps? Did it ever occur to you to get a good, strong sponsor that could hold your lazy butt accountable? We don't ask that because we want to be loving. We want to be all-inclusive. I'm not trying to be abusive. I just, but you understand what I'm saying, guys? Like it's like, I want you to look at it from my perspective. From my perspective, it's like, I love you so, this is what I see. I love you so much that I'm going to let you run your yak and practice a program that's not real. And that's how much I love you. Knowing that it's only a matter of time for the wheels to come off this carriage and you're going to be in trouble again. You see, I think the solution for all of us is to learn the steps, learn what good, strong sponsorship looks like, learn what recovery looks like, and then get off our rears and go help somebody with that deal. And if they don't want to do what we do, say, see ya. I love you. Bye. This idea that we have to be inclusive and we have to be all for everybody, there has to be some... Look, let's talk about this a little bit, because I think this weekend is going to define some boundaries. And guys, boundaries aren't all bad. Okay? I mean, let's talk about this just for a second. A quick second. I'll be quick. I'll be brief. I promise you. I get on these little rabbit trails, and I came in here with so many things that I wanted to talk about. In our translation of the big book, the U.S. one, on page 17, I'm not sure where it is in yours, but I'll bet you can find it in a heartbeat. There's a deal in there that talks about a common solution. I'm gonna read it. You don't even have to reach for your book, but it's the title page for chapter 2. There is a solution, and at the bottom of that page, towards the bottom of that page, there's a line. I want to read this little paragraph so we can talk about it. The feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us. Okay, I'm going to hold my finger right there. We'll just hold it. Everybody in here, it remembers what it was like to come into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous for the first time, and we're nervous and we're scared and we can't look. We're just looking at the floor when we walk in. We're afraid somebody will recognize us or will. You understand what I'm saying? We're all uncomfortable. And gradually, as we sit there in that meeting, we begin to look up across the table and we begin to see other little busted up knuckleheads just like us sitting at the table. And there's this feeling of for many of us, there's this feeling of connectedness that is profound. We all of a sudden are connected to brothers and sisters in a battle through this minefield of destruction that joins us in a way that is amazing. You get that, right? We all have lived through that kind of stuff. Now, I kind of wish that Bill had stopped it right there. I would have felt better if he had. But he doesn't. He goes on. But that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. He had to mess it up. So then he's going to say this. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered what? A common solution. Okay. A common solution dictates that we do it in a common way, right? I'm not saying that we have to be machines out there doing everything exactly the same way, but the basic idea of getting guys from point A, busted up drunk, to point B, recovered alcoholic, the way to do that should be close enough that it looks the same, or at least resembled each other, right? And yet when we travel, what I see is these crazy, mixed up ways that people are doing things, and sometimes you just sit back and go, really? Really? Is that really what you're talking about? Is that what? And sometimes it's baffling. But when people start talking and you hear these things, you begin to go, oh, wait a minute. I get it. I understand why we have so many people struggling. You see, on page 24 of the big book, 24 in ours. I'm sorry, Mr. Translator guy. I had one more that I was going to. I told him already, but I wasn't going to go back to the book that much. But we will tomorrow, but not tonight. On page 24, there's a deal that says, in italics, says, I'll just read it. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drinking. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We were without defense against the first drink. They define the time. They define it, a week or a month. So this idea that I can go and just sit and play games with you guys for a couple of months before I start doing this work, let me tell you what happened. Because we see this all the time. Because of the nature of untreated alcoholism and its progressive nature, what happens is that you'll get some guy, remember a guy that comes into your meeting one night and he's really, really compliant. He'll do anything that you want him to do. And then a week later, he's not so compliant. And a week later, he's not even acknowledging that you're in the same meeting with him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just like, this is not him just being full of himself. This is what alcoholism looks like in some of its ugliest form. This guy is now bulletproof. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous. I mean, sometimes, especially like in younger guys, because they're so physically vibrant. Old guys like me, when I get beat up that bad, I stay beat up for a long time. You see what I'm saying? But these young guys, man, these young bucks come in here like this, and I'm telling you, man, they're still full of piss and vinegar when they get here. You see? And you give them a couple of weeks of good food, good-looking women, coffee. I mean, it just, oh my gosh, we don't have a lot of time. And that's the reason why it's so important. We're going to talk about this at some length tomorrow. This is why it's so important that we get busy as quickly as we can to get this guy in the solution, which is the steps, as quickly as we can, so that he can get connected to God, so that God can fix what ails him, so we can get on down the road and have another brother or sister in the trench with us carrying the message. And that's how it works. You let anybody, I don't care who you are, you let anybody sit on their rear end talking trash in an AA meeting for any length of time without working the work, without bringing God into the picture, and I guarantee you guys, it'll be a wheels-off nightmare. And that's the reason why a lot of times we have so much trouble getting people to say. It's not that the program changed all that much necessarily, it's just that we somehow or another have started giving the authority, giving the responsibility to do this work to somebody else. Well, we'll let the treatment centers get them sober. Okay? I guess that's okay. I don't have a problem with it. But what happens when they get here, though? Don't we have a responsibility to continue what was started immediately? Yeah, I think we do. Let me tell you what happened. We did this in a couple of other ways too. We did this in the big book one time, where we took something like the Bible and we took it and we made it subjective. Well, it means what I say it means. You see? And then what I found was when I got to AA, we did exactly the same thing with AA. We took text that was given to us 75 years ago and we just said, well, it's subjective. Bill sort of meant this, and they sort of meant that, but maybe they didn't mean that. And so I start trying to customize my view of what the book looks like, what the text looks like. And guys, again, I got to tell you, if you came up in an area where AA was really strong, it was not a problem. You could still get a pretty good idea about what was happening. But man, if you were in one of those crazy places, we'll talk about it some tomorrow like that, because I'm telling you, I think the last time I was here, I told you about groups that were charging money to hear fifth steps. I mean, and nobody says a word. Nobody even raises a finger. The places where they won't let you take the text, they won't let you take the big book into a meeting. Because we're not going to study it, so all we're going to do is share our day, so why do we need that speaking book? You see? And it happens. Listen, I know you're going to think I'm kidding. I got an email from a lady this last week whose husband had gotten drunk, and he went back to where he sobered up, and they told him not to come back for 30 days until he could put 30 days sobriety together. They didn't want to see him back in that AA club. I mean, does that shock? I mean, it just when I heard that, I just went, holy, listen, you can hear Bill and Bob flipping over in their graves right now. Right. But see, this is what happens when we make our text subjective. Bill never gave us those caveats. He never said, well, you can translate this a couple of different ways. Let me give you those ways. He didn't say that. I think Bill Wilson was always so definite, black and white. They spent so much effort trying to make it black and white that they set boundaries in the deal. Now, if you're like me, I mean, from Texas, if you tell me I got to color inside the line, I'm running over here and coloring outside the line. I don't know whether that's Texan or just me being a contrarian. I don't know. But I can tell you that the old idea of Myers in the old days was, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it. Light myself on fire? It sounds like a bad idea, but because you brought it up, I'm like, see, I just kind of freaks me out thinking about it. Well, what we didn't realize was going to happen, what I certainly didn't realize, is that when I began to let the book, the text, define where the boundaries were, some remarkable things happened. Let me just spell some of them out, a couple of them out, and we'll talk some more tomorrow about it. One of the things it did was it took away all of the anxiousness that I had inside about 12-step work. Because left on my own devices, guys, I'm too stupid. I am. I'm too slow. I'm too uneducated. I'm too busy. I got a world of things that keep me from doing 12-step work. And what happened was, is that when I realized that I didn't have to be witty, I didn't have to be smart, I didn't have to be able to quote page after page of big book. What I had to know is I had to know the book well enough. I had to understand the steps well enough that when Andy or Simon or some little busted up knucklehead came in and needed help, when they came in, I could just sit them down, identify them with a little bit, we could talk for just a second, and then we could begin the process of laying out this spiritual deal to them. And it's an amazing thing. I don't have to remember all the witty statements that people said, all the little one-liners, all the other stuff. I didn't have to take a year to read a guy from page 1 to page 164. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. All I had to do, because guys, it's important. Chris is going to talk about this some in the morning. This idea that I've got a lot of time is the first thing I hope we smash this weekend. I hope that we just simply look at it a different way. Because what I got sitting in front of me when Andy or Simon or any of these guys, when they come in and they sit there, what I got is a dying man in front of me. Now let's try to get realistic about this, guys. He's dying. He's got the deadliest disease known to man, and it's chronic in nature. It's a disease that tells him that it doesn't even exist. His disease, he gets up every morning and says today's going to be different. It's not a real problem. You see? But we know different. We know different. And that's the reason why when he's sitting there, I'm not wasting any time. In AA land, we say we're going to let him get comfortable first. We want him to feel at home here. Let me tell you something. You've got to understand it. Look right here. I don't give a crap. I don't care if he feels comfortable here. I don't care if he's really and truly, I don't want him comfortable at all. I want him coming out of the skin with pain and discomfort, because only in pain do we make the decisions that we're supposed to make, right? You let him sit on his rear end and start scoping the women, I promise you, his whole focus about why he's here just shifted. He's not thinking about getting sober anymore. He's thinking about breasts. That's what he's thinking about. Sorry. You ever say things and you just wish you hadn't said them? Oh, man. Okay. Remember when Bill and those guys wrote the book, they wrote it because they wanted to give us something that we could do that was exclusionary of a meeting. They were hoping that you could send this book to Iceland long before there was a meeting in Iceland, and somebody could read it and go, holy cow, there's a solution to alcoholism, and then get it, you see? And so that's the reason why today, if we begin to look at the big picture of AA worldwide, it ought to, in theory anyway, it ought to look more like this and less like what we're seeing. I'm not saying that all AA is bad guys, but I'm telling you, when you travel as much as I travel, you'll see some stuff that'll blow you away. And I just think let me just ask you the hypothetical question. Like in the old days when they used to play that game called telegraph or telephone, you guys probably played it in Europe too, the deal where I would whisper something in Chris's ear. It could be just a funny line. I would whisper in his ear and it would work its way down here like this, and by the time it got down to here, this guy's getting sort of the picture. By the time it gets about midway, you poor bastards back there, y'all are screwed. You're not going to get it. But that's the problem with an oral translation of our text. Nobody meant to change anything. It's just that day by day we hear things that sound good, and that becomes part of our doctrine. And we pile a little more up, and a little more up, and a little more up, and because this takes work to learn, pretty soon I got a great big head of walking around with these great big ideas of what we're going to do to get you sober. And it doesn't bear any resemblance to this. And so when you fall flat on your rear end, everybody in AA land goes, well, he just didn't want it bad enough. It just drives me nuts when I hear it, guys. I get so angry when I hear that. I'm quite sure that sometimes people don't want it when they're here. I don't doubt that. But it's got to be such a catchphrase for anybody that doesn't get this deal. Well, they just didn't want it bad enough. It just wasn't their time to get this deal. Please, I just don't believe that. I just don't buy it because I've seen too much wreckage sitting in meetings. I have a friend of mine in Houston that went to 16 meetings in a row over a period of 3 weeks. 16 meetings and never heard anything about alcohol mentioned. Did you guys understand what I'm saying? So if we're not talking about alcohol in any of those 16 meetings, what are we talking about? Cats, dogs, grandkids, shopping, jobs, bad bosses, good bosses. The list could go on. We're talking about all these crazy things. We got to be careful. So here it is. So the nuts of this thing is that what we're going to try to do is over a period of tomorrow and tonight, we're going to try to get this thing worked out so that we can begin to look at the idea of just studying some different stuff. I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong. Let's make sure that we're real clear on this, okay, guys? Real clear. I'm simply saying that I think that if each individual here in this room, if everybody in this room would simply be willing to take everything they think they know about AA, everything we think we know about recovery, and just set it down. Just set it down on the floor. So now we're all kind of AA virgins. We're standing here and none of us have any preconceived ideas in our head. We don't have anything going on. And then we begin to investigate everything that we set down before we pick it back up again. You understand what I'm saying? And so it takes a little courage to do that, and it demands some action on your part in order to do that. But what begins to happen was we begin to take things and pick it up and we look at it and we examine it and go, that's some pretty cool stuff, but it's really not text, so we'll leave that on the floor. And then a little bit later we'll pick something else up and go, oh, that's perfect, we'll keep that. And then what happens is that this anxious thing inside me that demands that I know the answer to your question, that demands that I'm smart, goes away. Because I want to assure you guys, if you had to be smart to be successful in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd be screwed. Because I'm not smart. I don't make any bones about it. I'm not. And so this is why this whole idea of being involved in book studies and involved with teaching the big book became so heady for me. Because I could begin to realize that when we did this, the anxiousness and this inner conflict. Guys that sponsor, you guys that are sponsored, guys, have you ever gotten to a place where in sponsorship you had this kind of love-hate relationship going on with the men or women that you sponsor because you're always afraid they're going to ask you something that you don't know? I mean, most of us go through that stuff, guys. And the problem with that whole deal is that a lot of times we're taking on way too much responsibility for what's going on in the lives of these guys. I don't know I don't have to have an answer for all of your finances and your relationship stuff and is there anything crazier than a man or a woman walking into an AA club and sitting down in a meeting and saying, I'm having a problem with my boyfriend, and then listening to 12 or 13 men and women around this circle give you advice on what to do with your relationship, and there's not an honest relationship in the room, maybe. Maybe there is. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but there probably isn't. If you were in the same circles that I was, wouldn't it be cooler just to be able to find a quiet place and sashay up next to God and say, God, I'm having trouble with this relationship. Let's chat. It just seems like, maybe that's just me. I'm gonna read one more real quick thing and then I'll be out of here. There was a guy named D.A. Carson he's a theologian. He has nothing to do with AA. And Carson wrote this. He did his speech one time, and I pulled the transcript off the internet of this talk that he did, and it blew me away. There was a bunch of stuff in there that was cool, but one line just stuck out like it was written in neon. And part of this line said, "We drift towards compromise and call it tolerance." And this is the question I want to leave you with, that we want to think about, is that how much of AA do we do just out of acceptance? How many times do we let things happen in an AA meeting and instinctively we know it's not the right thing to happen, and yet we let it happen because we want to be accepted? That's one thing. And the other one is this thing about compromise. I mean, it's funny how in our fellowship, tolerance has gotten to be the catchphrase for everything under the sun. Well, we want to be tolerant. Well, I understand that, but somewhere in there, we cross the line. You see, tolerance, sometimes if you let it go far enough, looks just like what he talked about. It looks just like compromise. And if I said, "You're compromising your program," you'd go, You see what I'm saying? But let some young buck come into a meeting and start hitting on some brand new girl that's got 2 days sober, and he's over there hitting on her like a big dog, and everybody just looks the other way and ignores it. Tell me that's not compromise. We know better, don't we? We know that we need to protect our sister in this deal until she gets well, right? We do know this. You see, this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Oh, well, I got a sponsor that said we're going to start the work sometime at the end of the year. He just wants me to get comfortable. That sounds like compromise to me. What that's saying to me is either the sponsor doesn't understand the steps, or he doesn't want to fool with you at all. What he was doing, in effect, is dusting you. He's hoping that you'll leave before he has to do the steps with you. And you see this stuff all the time. Isn't that horrible? Maybe it doesn't happen here. Maybe I'm talking out of turn. But I'm telling you right now, in Dallas, Texas, it happens so often that it's scary. So often it's scary. How do I know? Because those same men that got dusted call me. You see what I'm saying? I'm not talking just what I think may be happening. I've had hundreds of telephone calls from men who have been in our fellowship for over 6 months and haven't started working the steps yet. And they're dying. The ones that make it that far, they come in like dead men walking. And you go, "Come on." And you start asking questions and you realize they haven't done anything. So, all that to say, this is it. What we're trying to do is this. If we can get us all collectively to begin looking at the book in a different way, if we can begin looking at the steps for what it was intended to be, a gateway to God. You see, a gateway to a spiritual path that some of us have just discounted is not attainable. It is, truly, it is. From a flag-waving agnostic like I was to where I am today is a path that I couldn't have gotten any other way except the way that I did. You see what I'm saying? And so that's the hope, that through the weekend, if we talk about some stuff and it doesn't jive with what your sponsor said, we're not here to get any disputes with any of that kind of stuff. Just keep doing what you're doing. If it's working, especially, keep doing what you're doing. But if you find yourself struggling in our room, if you find yourself nervous about the idea of sponsorship and about 12-step work, if you're making excuses why you can't go carry the message someplace, "Well, I'm really busy." Oh, you mean this Friday? Oh, no, I couldn't go this Friday. I've got fill in the blank. If you find yourself doing that, then let's be open and willing to simply investigate that and see what happens. Okay? And I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's one thing coming to a place where you don't know anybody. It's another thing completely to come to a place where the room is full of people that you've met before, and they actually came back. That's always an interesting thing. You have the choice not to come too, you see. But I'm excited about the prospects, and I can't wait to see you guys in the morning. And Chris, I don't know if somebody's introducing you, or if you're just going to... Are we going to take a break first? You want a question and answer real quick? We can for a few minutes. Yep, we've got exactly 32 seconds for questions and answers. We're done. Anybody have any questions on that stuff?
Question to Myers, and if you want to put the question in Danish, I'll do my best to translate it into English. So this is your chance to ask questions and get answers.
And I already know what your dick sounds like in Danish, so if you say that, I'm going to know.
about Al-Anon?
What about Al-Anon? That's a great deal. Listen, I owe my marriage to Al-Anon. I've been married in November the 21st will be 30 years that I've been married to the same gal. And when I met Cliff Bishop, who's still my sponsor today, his wife, who passed away a couple of years ago, but she was my Al-Anon sponsor. And she connected so many dots for me that it wasn't even funny. Now, the same thing, I mean, it was bloody. It was really painful because I'd call and ask for Cliff, and she'd go, "No, you don't need to talk to Cliff, you need to talk to me." It was like that kind of thing. She knew what was coming. We see the same thing in Al-Anon, worldwide, that we see in AA, worldwide. And that is, you have folks that have decided that they don't want to do the original concept and the original ideas of Al-Anon. They want to do just a version of it, which usually looks like, let's crucify the alcoholic in our life for 40 minutes. It just gets kind of crazy, you see? And there's very little solution involved in that stuff. Dallas is famous for that kind of stuff like that. My wife went to a couple of Al-Anon meetings, and she said, every time I go, I walk out hating your guts. And I just kind of went, well, let's find something else for you to do. Maybe you can go bowling on Tuesday. But I also have seen this amazing groundswell of men and women in Al-Anon who have gotten back into the basic text as a companion piece of literature with the other literature that they're reading. In the group that I go to in Dallas on Tuesday night, there's 260 people that are studying the book. It's a big book study. And Al-Anon meets the same time that we do, and they're studying the same text. In that Al-Anon group, they study the basic text. I'm not saying that works for everybody, but it helped them a great deal. You see what I'm saying? And so you'll have to make the same kind of decisions. You'll have to ask yourself in the middle of the night, looking at the ceiling by yourself, you're going to have to ask yourself the same question. Is what I'm doing beneficial, and am I learning what I have to learn in order to help a suffering Al-Anon? Am I doing that? Or am I not? But sometimes in Al-Anon we just spin our wheels. We don't make any progress. Certainly for me for a long time, until Elaine got me in a headlock. Give me cookies, and I finally got it. Okay? Anybody else? We all cool?
The situation is that a lot of people come directly to AA from treatment centers somewhere, and they still have to join after treatment once a week. How do we recommend at what time to start up doing the steps? In that case, if they're still going somewhere else, I mean, not getting too many to mess up in their head.
That's a great question. And I'm not going to answer it all right now. I'm going to answer part of it right now, but the rest of it we're going to answer tomorrow. Because the answer takes a bit of time to go through. But this question has been asked I've been asked this question 100 times all over the world, because it's a problem that we all face. When guys come to AA from treatment, they're still bound by some sometimes legal stuff to treatment. There are certain things that they have to do with their aftercare that sometimes gets in the way of what we're trying to do over here. And I think the answer to that is to always try to do what's helpful and healthy for them. And sometimes it means going ahead and starting your work right there. I mean, sometimes if you can do it without getting in trouble with their aftercare, I'd start immediately. Because people always want to draw a line and go, well, that means you're working them too fast. Or they're always just saying, guys, I'm not sure that it's possible to begin this work too soon. I'm just not sure it's possible. Because of the nature of the way that we unravel. I mean, have you ever seen anybody in Dallas? What we did for a long time was they would still have sometimes 3 to 4 months worth of aftercare, and a lot of groups would just let them sit for 3 or 4 months. And in 3 or 4 months, I guarantee you 2 things are going to happen. I'm going to meet her, and I'm not going to need your stinking fellowship. That's it. That's the reason why it's so important that we get them plugged in as quick as we can. But we're going to talk about the backside of what you just talked about tomorrow. Okay?
My name is Uwe, and I'm an alcoholic. Hello.
As we came here and joined the convention, we were told, "Oh, you are from Germany." I thought in Germany AA is dead, and that's the case. What can we do as beginners to bring the to carry the message into the meetings again? You said that that there is no point to be too soon to start with carrying the message.
That's what we're seeing. That's a great question. I think that's a terrific question because it applies all over the world. We see the same kind of thing. Listen, I used to think that the solution was always from a podium. That I could take 2,000 people and put them in a room and tell them the truth, and everybody would walk out knowing the truth. And that's all it would take. But what I found out is that for everybody that I talk to here, there's 10,000 people out there that aren't here that are going to jam you up the moment you open your mouth in a meeting. And so it becomes really intimidating. We'll talk about that some tomorrow. But I think that the salvation, the complete salvation of Alcoholics Anonymous lies in sponsorship. It lies in good, solid sponsorship. So I'm sponsoring a guy, and he sponsors a guy, and that lineage begins, and it's all strong right out of the book. No flowery, nothing weird. Just text, okay? And then what we find is that pretty soon you end up with this army of men and women filled with zeal, not zealots. Don't go there. Not. We don't want a bunch of big book guys out there whacking people up the side of the head with a big book. It's offensive, and nobody likes that any more than I do. See? But we want people that are filled with zeal and excitement about a simple message that they can carry to another individual that has the power to save their life. Listen, for a taker like me that's taken all of his life, the idea that I could actually say something that would transform somebody's life is pretty heady stuff. And I didn't have to be smart to do it. This is good. It's a great question. We'll talk about that stuff this weekend, okay? Guys, thanks so much. I appreciate it.